Dear Europeans, my name is Mitch. I represent an association called ARPAC. Our goal is to reinstate the right to keep and bear arms in France. But today, I'd like to speak to all my fellow Europeans that happen to be in the same situation of defenselessness as French people. For centuries, our respective governments have forced us to take up arms and kill each other for their own benefit, just to make us surrender the weapon when it was time for the elite to go back to extorting their own flock. Nowadays, aside of Czech Republic and Estonia, our governments and the European institutions have decided that we still are not to be trusted with the very guns they use against us to force us into paying the taxes on which they thrive. From left-wing socialists to right-wing nationalists, every single of our politicians agree very much with each other about the idea of treating us like boisterous children when it's about our real right to self-preservation. Yet, when it's about blaming us for not paying up the legal extortion they call taxes or following the petty rules they impose on us just to please their never-satisfied ego, they still all agree to punish us like fully responsible grown-ups. They claim we don't need guns, but they sure do need them. All around Europe, peaceful, law-abiding citizens are disarmed and reduced to absolute vulnerability, and we're told it's for our own safety. Who are we kidding? Ursula von der Leyen benefits from an armed protection wherever she goes. She's not a strategic person in terms of European defense. She's not the chief of any kind of armed forces. No, she's just a corrupt politician and a glorified bureaucrat that fancies herself more valuable than you and your children that you're not allowed to defend either. She's protected using the same guns the likes of her make sure you cannot own or carry. Europeans generally aren't allowed to defend themselves with a gun or pretty much anything, actually. Yet, illegal weapons flow rather freely in our countries and through our borders, and supply gangsters with everything they need to torment us on a daily basis. In a way, any deranged activist of whatever cause he deems more valuable than your life can go berserk and start stabbing people or drive over crowds, like they did in Nice, for instance, with not much risk of being stopped before the police intervenes. And it's likely you may have to wait quite a bit for the intervention of the public force, since protecting the people seems to be always less relevant than collecting fines from car drivers in the eyes of those that give orders to the police. And as long as you don't have guns and carry them, you will not be the one giving the orders. Social contract, the social contract we supposedly agree on, where we give up some freedom for a greater good, has demonstrated itself to be a fraud in favor of the elite only, over and over. Of course, as good Europeans, we have been fed the convenient narrative from US Democrats and Michael Bloomberg and his lobby every time and all these things about the nasty Second Amendment that only exists to financially benefit the gun lobby at the expense of children's lives in school mass shootings. Besides the preposterous idea that millions of Americans are stupid enough to favor something that kills their own children, okay, I would agree that sure, they do have a problem, do have a crime problem in the US, but what makes you think it's a gun problem? If you have a burglary problem, you don't necessarily have a crowbar problem, even if it's commonly used to break doors. Czech Republic allows its allows its citizens to pass a gun permit and to carry a gun. Estonia does the same, and these are amongst the safest countries in Europe. Go to Prague, go to Paris. You'll see the difference. You'll definitely wish you had a gun in many streets of the French capital, when you won't notice that quite a few Czechs do actually carry their gun, thus created an unwelcoming environment for street criminality. Our leaders have guns. You don't. They are protected by guns and you're not. You pay taxes and they live off taxes they collect at gunpoint. And you believe the people is sovereign in Europe just because we vote? French people have voted against the European Constitution in a referendum. Our president, that was Sarkozy back then, ignored the referendum and had our parliament agree on it despite our vote. And I'm sure each of our European countries have instances of elites only respecting democracy when it suits them. Why would it be otherwise? You don't have guns, and they do. We know it's a scam, but too many of us are afraid of being called extremists just because we deem our peaceful citizens' lives, and the ones of our children, more valuable than the one of street thugs and crazy fanatics. This has to stop. We cannot entrust petty bureaucrats and demagogues with the very existence of our basic human right to self-preservation, without the practical means to exercise a right that right does not exist. I know there are freedom lovers in every single European country. Let's support each other and acknowledge that when the citizens are disarmed, serfdom is bound to become a reality again. Governments and European institutions don't disarm us because they're afraid we'll kill each other for a parking spot. They disarm us to make sure we'll pay the public parking fee every single time. They disarm us to seize our wealth and care little about exposing us to crime while doing so. A sovereign people is an armed people. I'm sure we all have a way to say it. For instance, I love the German concept of a Volksbewaffnung, and we all know the unforgettable Greek molon lave. But it's for each and every one of us to say it in our own language, as long as we say it together at the face of corrupt politicians that fancy themselves such a moral elite that we should trust them with arms that are denied to us, mere peasants. So I'll say it my way, and I hope you do as much. Aux armes, citoyens!